Good morning. I thought I'd give a little update on how my Read What You Own 100 Book Challenge is going. Um, Long story short, not very well. The last video I did, I was about what? Around 50? 30? Was it 30? 30. Um, and that was what? Near the end of November. Um, and then we got sick in November, only just getting better, right? Mid December practically. Um, So the update is it seems that I got to about 50 before I actually broke down and bought a couple books. Now, I went back to it. I'm like, okay, well, they're not really books. They're a dictionary and a commentary on another book, a book that I was actually reading at the time, but still not the spirit of things. So 30 didn't really read much for the end of November. So we started reading again when we started feeling better. Got up to about 50, I guess, and I got the first two books that I'm going to share. Then yesterday, I guess the wheels fell off, and I found some books that I just couldn't deny. In fact, one of them was there that I didn't get because I assumed I'd be able to find a digital version or an audiobook. It's by an author that I read a book recently, read it twice. I enjoyed it so much. And I've actually borrowed it again. I don't know if I'm going to have time to read it again, but um, when I came home from the thrift store, we did a thrift Christmas, so everything was thrift. That's why. When I came home from our thrift Christmas on Sunday, so that was what, Christmas Eve, um, I went looking for this book and I couldn't find it. And so, out of utter depression, I downloaded her other book that I really enjoyed reading. It was really good. Um, but as I said to the wife I would go back. This is Boxing Day. This is how terrible I am. But we'd go back Boxing Day. It was Senior's Day, which is awesome, right? They would have missed it, right? Senior's Day is Monday. So I like that they kept it the next day. I don't think any of the seniors knew because usually we're just overflowed, right? It's the wife and I and a store full of blue hairs. But today there was none, so that's why we were surprised. Or yesterday, actually, it's the morning after. I've got a whole bunch of books. So here we go. At 3 minutes, I'll be able to say at 3 minutes it actually starts. So I said, hey, I'm going to read 100 books before I buy another book because I was getting too many books. As the Read What You Own kept me from buying other books. And the 100 Book Challenge, right? Um, I'm looking forward to next month, by the way. Just a little insight. I also went through my translations. It seems I have five physical translations of the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavad Gita. And this is new to me. This is why I've been excited to be able to read. As you can see, I've started reading it, but there's a read along, or what would you call it, a group read of the Bhagavad Gita in January. The wife and I just finished reading the Gospels of the Bible for December, for Advent. And I convinced her to read the Gita. This is the book that I've been reading for my entire life. Absolutely adore it. As did Gandhi, by the way. The life that he lived. The life that he lived, he felt was guided by the tenets of the Gita, the song of the universe, the song of the Lord, whatever you want to call it. So looking forward to that. By all means, you can read many different translations. This one just happens to be, it's a 2 volume of the Gita, um, supposedly by Yogananda. I don't know if it's about Yogananda, but reading it, it is so excellent. The amount of information in this, I would say it's the most extensive translation of the Gita that I have. Now that I'm feeling better, I'm going to do a video on the different translations that I have. Um, it's not like the Bible, where the Bible has a philosophy, right? They'll either try to go by spirit or word for word, or I can't remember the different types of translation. This is what I've been thinking about lately. Whereas the Gita, it depends on the author, whether they choose to put in the Sanskrit text or the anglicized version, the one, how you pronounce it, I don't know what you call it, or simply just the English. And they each have their use. For the month of January, I'm going to have the wife read the Eknash Eshwaran, which is just the written. I'm going to read Yogananda's. Um, I would recommend a number of other versions that have a combination of commentary and straight English. So hold on. Okay, my apologies. So started Read What You Own and the 100 Book Challenge November 7th. I made it to, I don't know, near the end of November, and I got to about 30 books. Then we got sick, and our reading really slowed down. I'm currently at around 60 some. Um, about that. I haven't exactly counted because I'm going to have to log into Hoopla as well. So it might be a few more than that, but we'll say about 60. But as I said, at 50, same thing happened. At 50, I was holding to my tenants. I was still looking through the book section at the thrift store, but only if it was something absolutely amazing, right? And I came across these. It is Harper's uh, Bible Dictionary. Look at the size of this thing. And this is Harper's Commentary. The size of that thing. Right? It's not small. And so, I mean, you can imagine. It takes up a lot of space. And yesterday I learned a little bit more about some of these thrift stores. And so when I saw these commentaries, I'm like, oh wow, that's cool. But I mean, outdated. Who would want Bible commentaries in this day and age when you have the internet? And just by accident, again, Kismet was watching some of the videos, and what came up is how transformational some of this stuff can be. And I guess I've learned in my old age, I do adore now reading other people's opinions about works that I have read and loved myself, and it doesn't change what I love or what I love about them. It just deepens my love for them, right? And so when I started reading Northrop Frye's The Great Code, I got into me this idea to really tear into our literature and our meaning, and that's what Northrop Frye's Great Code is about. It's the Bible being the basis for so much that is the Western canon. But I saw these and I left them. I think, for even a week. And it's a good thing I didn't leave it much longer, because it looks like they leave them out for 2 weeks, and if no one buys them, they don't know what they do with them. I doubt they're paying to ship them to another store. So I'm pretty sure probably losing a bunch of books. It's too bad, because there's not enough people coming into many of these stores for some of these really great books, and I'll show you what I mean. Right, so I picked those up. That was probably 2 weeks ago, before Christmas. I didn't get anything else. I started back into my reading, and I've even been sticking to not reading anything unless it was already on my to be read or my wish list. Right, and so there was a book that I'd heard about, and it was fairly short, and I was pretty excited to actually read it, because it relates to Carl Jung's Red Book. It relates to Thomas à Kempis's The Imitation of the Christ. I can't remember who mentioned it. It was I can't remember exactly who wrote it. Just wrote it. Sorry, spoke about it. Um, it was actually an interview with like Huberman or one of those, and the gentleman was just talking about in the same way that they're talking about this book, in the same way that Jung used to talk about the Imitation of the Christ. The idea that this book could provide so much in such a tiny little book. And he said the same thing about this book. It's called The Practice of the Presence of God by Brother Lawrence. It's just a tiny little book. I got it from somebody named Sid Roth. It's funny because he says nothing in this book can be duplicated or shared. Or it's like, really? It's all in the public domain, but smart enough. And that's what I love about some of this stuff. Being in English, pardon me, I can share it, can even read it, right? Because the translator doesn't have his grubby little copyright hands on it like some of these things. But they still try to put that through. I found that a little funny, especially since how cheap this particular book is. It's pretty old. Brother Lawrence is about 300 years, 1600 and something. It's really interesting. It's almost like screw tape letters. It's just a bunch of little letters. And in it, you get the philosophy. And so I found that pretty kismet that I came across the book. I'd already added it to my to be read. There's even a LibriVox version of it, but I hadn't listened to it, right? Because I got back to the read what you own, right? So I was going to hit this up once I hit the 100. But when I found it across the street, if you know me, I have no problem listening to audiobooks. I can tear through them like nobody's business. But physical books take me a little more work, so it's good that I can come across something that I want to read, um, and so that I could just, exercise the physical reading muscle. Right? And what came along with that was I've heard when I was doing my studies of the Bible, I heard that Charles Spurgeon has some pretty profound insights. So I grabbed myself this little book. It was only a buck. It's just the Treasures of Charles Spurgeon. I thought it would be a nice little, what would you call it, avenue into his theology. Just get an idea of who and what he was. Hold on. Sorry about that. This was kind of funny because it was in the adult section but listed for children. It's actually Secrets of the Heart. It's a Hallmark edition, which is really quite funny. And I thought it was some other book publisher called Hallmark, but no, it really is Hallmark Cards. They published an edition of The Secrets of the Heart, Meditations of Khalil Gibran, and it's actually really nice. And considering it was cheap, I mean, $2, $3, I definitely grabbed it. That's on my upper limit of books lately. This one was interesting. This was cheap again. I love the fact that some of this stuff is cheap because it's Bible related. Nobody wants it, it seems. This is what's called Nelson's Quick Reference Bible Dictionary. Um, I mentioned that I picked up the Bible and the dictionary, and it's actually been quite interesting. Some of the extra insights it provides. The commentary is a line by line, and the dictionary is pretty much every topic idea that's in the Bible. So I just grabbed this as just a different view on this stuff. There's a map of Jerusalem, which is interesting, and maybe even came up recently. We were watching a tour of Jerusalem, the city of Jerusalem, and it's interesting to know how small the original city was compared to the current city. But if you are particularly studying the Bible for theology, philosophy, literature, especially, I think having a Bible dictionary and a commentary is very handy because it's more than just the words. When these lines from the Bible are shared, as one of my new favorites, the stone that was overlooked by the builders will be the cornerstone. These ideas, it's not just the words, it's the idea behind it, right? The first will be last and the last will be first. Just some beautiful ideas that are really profound and universal, in my opinion. Now, here's another one that is what would you call it? Kismet. It's just one of these weird little books written by somebody. It's called The Priestly Prayer of the Blessing. And that had me interested because of the words, the Hebrew words. Right now, my current obsession is how in Sanskrit we have a word metta for loving kindness. Um, and that's shared in the Greek of agape, used in the Bible, and then chesed in Hebrew. It all means this all-consuming love that God has for his children. And the reason why I'm obsessing on this is that it is profoundly damaging to children of trauma when they realize that the drama and the truth of parents, right? Not all parents are devoted to their children like we are told that God in chesed or loving kindness, metta, like the Buddha would love all all of us. It can be profoundly, in so many ways, it can be profoundly damaging. It can profoundly healing, insightful, demoralizing, you name it. To realize that parents will put themselves ahead of their own children, maybe even put their children in the firing line to spare them some trouble. It's it's interesting how in trauma therapy and trauma theory, how damaging and how profound this understanding can be that parents aren't this devoted um, saint that children see them as, right? I can't remember who said it, that in the hearts and on the lips of children everywhere, the word for God is mom. That was, I think it was from The Crow, the movie The Crow, comic originally, but you get me. I had a chance to pick up that comic too. There was a graphic novel in the bookstore when I was doing my Read What You Own challenge, and I didn't get it. Those are the books that I really do hope to find when I go across. That was a profound period of my life. We actually in English and American literature class in high school, we actually took the day and we locked the doors and we actually watched. A friend of mine came back from New York and he picked up a bootleg copy of The Crow. It was funny on VHS. This is back in the day when someone would have to take a camcorder into the theater and then duplicate. This is long before. I think it was before even CDs. Yeah. So in our American literature class, we watched The Crow, but that's not a big deal. That's something I'm sure I could find online. But I forgot about that. It just brought me back. But the reason why I grabbed this book wasn't just because of supposedly this one prayer written by God himself. It's from Numbers 6:24 to 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you peace. And what I love about it is when you go back and you read all the different translations, um, right? Illuminate the wholeness of his being. So, sorry, may Yahweh illuminate the wholeness of his being towards you, continually bringing to you order so that you will fulfill your God-given destiny and purpose. The reason why I mention it is I've been studying Hebrew lately, and I find it very interesting because a lot of the words are profound, very much like Sanskrit. Like, for example, the face, the word for face, and I don't believe he translated. He did almost all the other words of the Hebrew prayer. Oh no, yeah, here you go, face. Face in Hebrew is not exactly the same as it is in English. In English, face is talking about what you show to the external world, whereas face in this particular context refers to truly who you are, right? So here, panim is the plural form of the Hebrew word for face, and it means your entire being. Right? So I love this idea of, remember when I told you the story that when the angels found out that God was going to create mankind in his image, they went and hid the face of God. And I mentioned how this idea of the Hebrew word for face isn't just what you show to the external world. Your face shows your entire being, right? Almost like the portrait of Dorian Gray may have been inspired by the simple truth that the Hebrew word for face is almost the opposite of our understanding. And arguably, it is very similar to the idea of faith. Because I just finished reading an excellent book on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And in it, he reminds us of that very simple truth in Greek, in Hebrew, and in Sanskrit, in the case of the Yoga Sutras. Faith is a word that's closer to trust or devotion or commitment. Uh, it's just something not well understood here in the West, right? So, being a student of Hebrew right now, for the universal truths that it might bring us, I grabbed this because, again, it's just a book, a Bible book, so it was $2 cheap. Okay, so and the whole reason why I went across the book that I absolutely wanted to grab because I really enjoyed the book that I read by her recently. She is a rabbi. She is a rabbi. Her name is Naomi Levy or Naomi Levy, uh, depending on how she pronounces it. I can't remember if I've watched an interview with her. I'm not terribly familiar with who she is. I know of her story, but not completely. She's written probably a half dozen or more books, and I've really only read two. Einstein, Einstein and the Rabbi, or the Rabbi and the Einstein and the Rabbi, and it's this wonderful book that I cannot recommend more highly because of the story and how well it's written and some of her teaching. And before you get it all freaked out because of the title of this one, or that she's a rabbi, or that she does write about, coming to understand who you are and the nature of meaning and why we're here and the nature of God. This sort of, difficult to talk about stuff. But what I love about Naomi is she makes this very relatable. She, like I said, she tells these wonderful stories, and that's where I got that story that when the angels heard that man was going to be created in God's image, they hid the image of God, hid the face of God, and they tried to decide where to hide that face that we wouldn't find it. And they knew that we could climb mountains and we could swim to deep recesses in the ocean. So they decided the best place to hide the face of God so that we may not find it is in our own souls, right? Within us, because that's the last place we ever look. It's a wonderful story. But this book, Talking to God, it flows from her first book, To Begin Again. She rebuilt after some tragedy. And what I like about it is it's just filled with a bunch of prayers, meditations, right? And so what was a surprise for me is what I read, and it sounded awesome. She's an excellent author, but I was surprised to see that there is no audiobook of it. It doesn't seem to be easily accessible. The cheapest used copy I found was 15. I think the cheapest new copy was 30 or 40. It's interesting because this here is a first edition of all things. I'm starting to get an appreciation for some of these, right? Because it's kind of cool to be able to read it. This would be about 21 years ago when this book came out, and to actually be among the first to read this. But here, I've also just to share with you, because I'm reading so many physical books now, um, I like bookmarks. And so, being Christmas, I found if you take some ribbon, right? This one was just regular ribbon. It's cute little sloths. This here was a roll of Christmas ribbon. I'm not a fan of it because it's kind of shiny plastic or something they put on it, so it's got a weird texture to it. It's not bad, but I like just the regular fabric. This one's nice. It's got a nice textury flip. So it's what I recommend for bookmarks now. You can get yourself a roll of 9 feet of ribbon for a couple bucks and get yourself, well, 9 or more bookmarks out of it. But just let me share. There's a morning prayer here that I thought I would. It's in near the beginning of the book. It's how far I've gotten. There are so many things I take for granted. May I not ignore them today. Just for today, help me to remember that my life is a gift, that my health is a blessing, that this new day is filled with awesome potential, that I have the capacity to bring something wholly new and unique and good into this world. Just for today, help me to remember to be kind and patient to the people who love me and to those who work with me too. Teach me to see all the beauty that I so often ignore and to listen to the silent longing of my own soul. Just for today, help me to remember you. Let this be a good day, full of joy and love. Amen. I love that. It could be a mantra. I really do appreciate. I do appreciate. And as she said, she found out early on she had a gift for writing prayers, and that's what I'm realizing. Where my professor of he's currently mostly teaching Shaivism, and he was talking about what he wanted to do to make this more universal, more available to people, more um, sufficient, more helpful, beneficial is probably the word I was looking for. And it would be in little things like this, right? I mean, you can find guided meditations, but they're usually behind a paywall or they involved a bunch of advertising for somebody's book or a lot of ego. But I wonder if we were to start taking cues from some of these other religions and start treating our meditations like prayers and writing out. It's like narrative theory meets contemplative practice. If you write your own prayer, you can write your own story and you can right the wrongs. And I don't mean the wrongs done to you in the past. I'm talking about how you've internalized your past, how can I put this? By writing our own meditations, we can help us not rewrite our history in the sense of it not being true, but in reality, most of us remember our past from such a jaded lens, right? I can't remember where I read this recently, but the idea that everything in life is jaded by ego, and that includes our memories. And there's a lot of people who believe that trauma theory is simply righting those wrongs, not what happened to you, but how you remember it, how you processed it, and therefore how you carry it with you day to day. And I argue that is exactly what prayer is trying to do. That's what meditation is. I mentioned that to the wife that I have this weird idea that when we stopped carrying this every day, constant, when it stopped being like in mindfulness meditation in Buddhism, it's called sati sampajanya. It's this idea of to remember the teachings of Buddhism, right? That the ego is a construct, yet it also happens to be the source of most of our suffering, and the end of this suffering is possible. It's through the Eightfold Path, which is simply living a truer, more authentic life. This went from constant. It's no different in the Christian faith as well, or the Kabbalistic view. Went from constant to mornings or evenings to maybe once a week. I think that's what the church was for, right? Because people stopped carrying with them this deeper insight. Once a week, you could go and step away from the conventional world and reconnect with yourself and the creator, whatever that might be, right? Even an atheist can sit and connect with themselves and creation because, right, nature makes it possible that we're all here. But on that, I guess I'll leave you. I look forward to sharing the insights from this book. I cannot recommend the Bhagavad Gita more highly. I cannot recommend um, Einstein and the Rabbi more highly. I'll go through some of the books that I've read this month as well. There's a few in there that are really awesome, so I'll share some of those. A lot of them were just, I wouldn't say a lot of them. Some of them were meh. But have an awesome day. Thanks for hanging out, and read more books.